Hey, gorgeous you. I am incredibly excited for the conversation we're about to have simply because it's so fucking honest. Like, we're just not screwing around and pretending to skirt around the edges of a hard conversation. We're just going to get right to it. If your line in a toxic relationship is, if this person does, and you fill in the blank with one more evil thing, I'll fill it in for you because I've had this line. If this person hits me, that's it. I'm calling the police. That's a horrible, horrible line to have because you are so far into normalizing evil, toxic behavior. And if you get nothing else from this quick listen podcast, be it this. Anytime that you are excusing somebody's toxic behavior, that is too much. Just because you were not raised in an environment where healthy, safe behavior, where people are responsible for their emotional regulation, for their anger, for their outbursts, for their disgusting psychological, mental, emotional, torturous games, or their physical reaction to you, their physical abusive reaction to you. Just because you were raised in an environment that normalized really horrible, toxic things, drawing from my own life, gaslighting, sexual abuse, financial abuse, digital abuse, stalking, sexual trauma as a child, on and on and on and on. The list goes just for me. So if that's just for me, what are you normalizing in the people around you, in the people who you are saying are loving you? We have to start getting really honest with ourselves. And this is a quick touch base, a reality check, if you will. What are you normalizing? If your intuition, if your whole body is feeling, I'll use this. If you've ever watched the movie Jurassic Park, and you can see that if I'm picturing the little girl and the little boy when they're stuck in the car and it's pouring down rain and the car gets flipped over and the little girl and the little boy are just like terrified, right? At the beginning of that jungle scene when the car is getting spun around by the T-Rex and she's just shaking. If you're ever feeling inside you, if you can relate to her fear, to her absolute terror, because you feel that inside of you, that isn't how we're meant to live, just in case nobody's told you that. Right? The survival mechanisms that we build in order to survive in narcissistic, abusive relationships, they called for us to abandon ourselves, and that is not why you were born. If you, as a codependent person, I'm going to introduce that word a lot more often because I didn't know I was codependent. I was codependent for 5 years, just surviving my life, and I didn't know that. So we're going to talk a lot more about that. But if you are the person who is assuming the role of the giver, you are sacrificing your own needs, your feelings, and your own well-being for the sake of everybody else, or primarily the taker, the abuser, you are in a really unhealthy normalcy of surviving abuse. If you have codependent tendencies, you likely have learned early on in your life that love and abuse go hand in hand. That at some time in your life, you equated that mistreatment is normal in a relationship with somebody who loves you. You expect abuse and manipulation. You expect to be taken advantage of. That this is familiar treatment to you. So you have experienced that, possibly from a primary caregiver, and you've come to expect it in all relationships around you. In fact, you subconsciously create that. And I know because I was there. I was there, and there's just so much data on what codependents do in order to survive. Let's talk about the signs of codependency. Now, these are just common signs of codependency. And I want you to just create a tracking method in front of you. So maybe it's like, if you're driving, you just lift one finger for each of these that sounds a bit familiar, even if it's hard to hear. Because we have been going through life in survival mode. That's how come the dominant, abusive, narcissistic relationships come to us, because we are born into a need to equate peace and love and tranquility with harsh abuse. Okay, so the common signs of codependency. We have a deep, deep, deep need for approval from others. We really do not have an easy way if people dislike or disagree with something that we're doing. We take that to heart. It hurts. So we have a deep-seated need for approval from others. Our self-worth really depends on what those around us think about us. We don't have a self-guided self-worth system. It is dependent on the people around us. We have a normalized habit of taking on so much more than is possible realistically for us to handle. And we do this, I did this. Oh my gosh, I did this massively. We take this in order to get the praise and affection and attention, the love, the outpouring of love for finishing impossible tasks, right? We get that attention from sometimes the person who's abusing us, sometimes the external world, but we fill that through taking on more than we could ever possibly handle. We apologize. We apologize and we take the blame in order to keep the peace a lot. Not just once or twice in our lifetime, but a lot. We self-abandon and we take the blame all the time. That one gets to me because I've been doing that my whole freaking life. We have a pattern of avoiding conflict. Conflict is never something that gets resolved through conversation. It just grows and escalates, and we lose and we end up taking the blame. We know the abuse is going to get worse, so we avoid conflict. We have a tendency to minimize or ignore our own life desires and goals. We minimize them with shoo-shoo, like it's not possible to start a podcast. It's not possible. It's not possible. It's not possible. That is a way of avoiding creating our own independent life because it's not safe for us to do. We have an excessive concern about other people who we love, about their habits or behaviors. Where we can get so tied up in Sally, the alcoholic, we get so obsessive about her choices and her behavior that we kind of forget we're actually now addicted to Sally's thoughts and behaviors instead of staying in our own lane and helping Sally get to recovery when she asks for help to get to recovery. We make it our life's mission to be excessively concerned about others. We tend to show up in a fix-it kind of way where we just make decisions for other people. We have advice for other people. We manage their life, right? Because we're avoiding ours. So we manage and help and advice, even to the point where we can be manipulative to get other people to do what we want them and need them to do. You'll pick up on the moods. You'll reflect the mood of others around you rather than actually feel your own emotions. Or you might go to safe emotions, happy or angry, right? Those are two easy emotions the world generally understands. So you might kind of bounce or just stay in one and never really explore your own emotions and feelings and why you're there, because that would mean unpacking why your whole life is the way that it is. So I get it. I get it. It's hard. We experience extreme, devastating guilt and anxiety when we do something kind and loving for ourselves. And oh my gosh, I worked on self love for a couple of years in therapy. I was so disconnected from myself, like not even knowing my favorite colors because it was just bad to have my own favorite colors. Somebody else should pick those for me, right? I mean, how fucking crazy is that? It's like the epitome of a zero, 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 zero fawning sense of self, sense of identity. When we do things, let's see, how do I say that? We do things that we don't want to do to make other people's happy, other people happy. A good example of this would be, I'm going to use myself as an example here. I don't want to have ice cream. But the other person says, well, I can't have ice cream then either. You've ruined the whole night because you won't have ice cream. And I go, but I just don't want any ice cream right now. You can have ice cream. I can't have ice cream now. You've ruined it. It's all this. This is all over ice cream, right? It's so fucking stupid. But it's just a form of control and domination. And I'm going to ruin the entire day because I don't have ice cream. So then, of course, I have ice cream. I don't want ice cream, but now I've had ice cream. Okay. So we show up and we do things that we don't want to do, even if they're as small as having ice cream or not having ice cream, because it makes the other person happy. And if we're making the other person happy, our livelihood, our safety, and like our livelihood in being safe is all about how the other people around us feel, largely because they're not very kind people. We put our partners, we idealize them, we put them on a pedestal, and we cannot understand why these people hurt us all the time because we think so highly of them. They show us their red flags, their true colors all the time, but we ignore that and we maintain and we prioritize relationships that leave us hurt, unfulfilled, broken, and in shards. We have an overwhelming fear of abandonment and rejection. And both of those last two things with codependency, we are addicted. We are literally addicted to the way that we interact with the people that we deem to get all of our attention, like the ones that are worthy, well, not even that they're worthy, it's just that we've fallen in love. This could be not even a romantic love, right? But maybe it's a parent and child, but we give all of our everything to them. We're very enmeshed and we go beyond what is considered healthy because we don't have a sense of healthy, safe, independent self. We are very codependent, meaning, collaborative with other people who are the takers. So how do we become codependent? Just some common known things that I'm going to run through about why we become codependent. Physical, emotional, sexual abuse. Parents or caregivers that ignore the child's needs. Like if you have a narcissistic parent, that parent will have no problem letting a baby cry, and a baby quickly learns that its only means of communication is not going to be recognized by the parent, and therefore begins to develop in a detached sense of communicating. So it can begin very, very early where we learn that we're not heard, we're not worthy of being heard and respected or responded to by our own parent. So, let's look at more causes of codependency. Um, if you have a primary caregiver with a personality disorder, like we just talked about narcissism, if they have borderline personality disorder or a dependent personality disorder, like if they themselves are already struggling with their mental health, it may encourage you to have suppressed your emotional identity, your self identity, in order to stay safe and accommodate them their needed space. Okay, that is not saying that that's okay, right? It's just saying that that's just one way that we can develop our codependent survival skills. If we have parents or caregivers who are overly protective, so if we prevent, like if I as a parent prevent my children from ever learning how to voice their independence, establish difficult conversations with me, if I remove from them the safety of learning limits and for them to set healthy boundaries with me, right? If I remove all of those learning opportunities from them, they are going to develop as codependents. If you had a family that was broken up and you never had any therapy over that broken family or a death in the family, you could develop some abandonment issues. And if you have caregivers that swung between healthy and unhealthy, be a state of being present and connected, it can contribute to your attachment style that you have. And if we get criticism and bullying from our parents, our siblings, our peers, that can just strip away and leave us fragile and insecure in many relationships, including the relationship and mainly the relationship we have with ourselves. So there are so many things that can contribute that are out of your control in your developmental years or even your years as a surviving codependent that you didn't know this was even happening. There are so many underscores that happen to us and we just don't even know until one day that we do know, like this conversation we're having today, and you get to choose to work on fixing those behaviors that you want to address to make you choose yourself first, put yourself into your own life, and push others, especially unhealthy people, outside of your boundary zone. If you never address your codependency, it can really lead to spaces like I've experienced, the anxiety, depression, you feel just completely empty and alone, lost and hollow, powerless, hopeless. I sat throughout 5 decades of my life bouncing from suicidal ideation to pretending, masking, and being happy, happy, happy. So it can lead us to incredibly dark spaces with diminished to zero or no self-esteem, and we get burnt out with just the very act of living and showing up in our life. It is incredibly important that you address the reality of you might have some codependent tendencies. You can get professional support for codependency. You can buy books to recover from codependency. I have products coming out to help understand, recognize, and challenge and learn your way out of your own codependency. But it starts with recognition, recognizing your own signs that you have some codependent tendencies, or like Nita, you're fully fucking codependent and have zero sense of self, and you deep dive into therapy and spiritual understanding of self and accepting of self. So, First, we start with recognizing that we have some building an awareness that we have some changes that need to happen. Then we address our people-pleasing tendencies, right? We get into understanding that our mental, emotional, spiritual health, our feelings of guilt, anxiety, depression, our overall general ill feeling about the act of living the life we're living. We have to get real about addressing that. And that can start in any way, shape, or form that is comfortable for you. We have to build opportunities to connect with ourselves and build opportunities to honor ourselves and teach our intuition that it's okay, that I can show up for you, like myself, right? Like if I were talking to myself, it's okay. I can show up for me. I will be there for you. First and foremost, I will be there for you. We can grieve the past and we can forgive the past because us diagnosing and finding ourselves through, diagnosing of codependency and our traits that we need to work on, it isn't about them. Don't make your healing journey about them, the abusers. Make your healing journey about you. And so it's important to, yes, get mad at the abusers at what happened, journal, work through it, grieve it. Eventually, when you grieve it, you can forgive it and you can let go of it and you can move on from it. And I know that is a really hard thing to say, but it is fully possible and it is fully freeing. It is fully freeing when you are able to do that. And you can even maintain necessary relationships with unhealthy, narcissistic, abusive people that is incredibly boundaried. For instance, one person in my life, like if they step out of lines, I'm just going to report them to the police. That's just the way it is. And I've done it before multiple times. And I know that if this person crosses one of my lines, they're going to get a talk to the police. And I've even talked to the police and said, well, could you just go talk to that person? They're like, yeah, we'll go do that. But I don't think we're going to be able to file charges. And I'm like, I get that. But they are doing this. And I can, I've cited what they're doing. But because, in today's world, we like to have everything on video and we like to have 800 recordings. So don't make it about that, right? Make it about the fact that you're going to stand up for yourself every single time you can. And that's enough. Setting those healthy boundaries, even when it means the boundary isn't just you saying no, it's you like literally filling out a police report or filing documentation with the courthouse and saying no through a very legal means of a bunch of people all coming together and saying no. Because that is like a giant soul hug for you. It's like you giving your inner child all the way back to like being created in the womb a hug, showing up for you in a really powerful way. Regardless of whether or not you do this work alone or you do this work with therapists or coaches or courses, you have really, really, really got to get in touch with your emotional self, your intuitive self. You've got to take time, like learn how to journal, take time to reflect on your daily experiences, and step away from all the anxious energy that you might have. Learn grounding. I've got some earlier episodes on that. Learn how to recharge and revitalize yourself through mindfulness and meditation. I've said it a million times. I'll say it again. The Calm app is perfect for teaching you that. And you've got to practice healthy self-care, evidencing and honoring you, which honestly is going to feel really, and I'm using air quotes, weird, uncomfortable, because you're so trained to over showing up and people pleasing. You've got to get out there and try new things, build your interests. And as you do all of this, don't be afraid to heal your body. I myself, as I broke free of codependency, became aware of it and broke free of it, my 5 decades of codependent behavior, my PTSD was just fine-tuned in my nervous system to survival. And since somebody else wasn't hurting me, I found ways to injure me by not listening to myself. So if your internal self is saying, do not go hiking today, listen to that. Okay, it took me a couple big falls and injuries that I'm still rehabbing to listen to what my body is telling me. So I can't tell you enough. That's going to pay off 1,000-fold if you just learn how to listen to yourself. Now, I'm not saying with codependency and the discovery of it that you can't ever bake cookies for your family, right? Putting their need for delicious cookies ahead of your need to watch your favorite soap opera. Or as I'm addicted to Matlock recently. But what I am saying is that if baking the cookies means that you're going to be late to work, you're going to have to skip sleep, if you're going to have to put yourself at risk and harm to do this nice gesture, that's not the right time to bake the cookies. Okay? And let's not forget that recovery needs rest. That has been a very hard lesson for me over the last 5 years. And it's been this year that I have really dialed into rest. And that's not because I became aware of it, it's because people around me who care and who are smarter than me about recovery in that area continually, lovingly plunked that seed of rest in front of me and allowed me over the course of months to understand what was happening and to begin building in healthier self behaviors. So this quick check-in on how we are showing up for ourselves, I think, is a difficult thing to hear when you want to heal from abuse, because when we have finally broken free of abuse, we need for a while, I agree, we need for a while to point the finger. We need to be mad at our past, those people of the past, or those people who are still somewhat entangled in our life. Right? And that anger, especially if it's righteous anger, it can move you. It can move you out of a dangerous situation. So I'm not asking you to skip being angry at the other person. But what I am asking you for, when you're ready to stop showing up in a repetitive way in your life with bringing the same type of personality in front of you, when you're ready to learn more, I'm asking you to look at your codependent survival mechanisms and slowly engage yourself in new healthy learning options and opportunities, because you're worth that. And you're worth so much more. Okay? Have a fabulous day. Thank you for tuning in, and let me know what you think of and what you think of this episode, and what you'd like to talk about in future episodes. Thanks.